The first time Grant touched my hand while blindfolded, he let go after less than 2 seconds. "Not Carrie," he said, smiling beneath the black satin scarf. Everyone around us laughed. I did too, because I was wearing a wedding dress in a sunlit room overlooking Charleston Harbor, because my father was downstairs trying not to cry, and because there are moments when a woman will protect a celebration even from the truth standing directly in front of her. Then Grant reached Brooke. His fingers closed around hers. His thumb brushed once across the base of her index finger where years of violin practice had left a faint callus. His entire body relaxed. "There you are," he said instantly. He pulled off the blindfold. Blindfold saw my best friend instead of me and went completely still. The room did too. Before I tell you what happened next, if you have ever ignored a small moment because accepting what it meant felt too painful, you may understand why I did not walk away immediately. My name is Carrie Moore. I was 26 years old that morning, a historic interiors designer living in Charleston, South Carolina. I spent my days helping old houses keep their character while becoming livable again. I loved crooked floors, original brass hardware, and the evidence that something could survive a century without becoming untouched. Grant Dalton, my fiancé, was 30. He worked in commercial development and could walk into a room full of strangers and make each person feel as though meeting them had been the purpose of his day. We had been together 4 years, engaged for 10 months, and until that wedding weekend, I believed our biggest problem was that he hated planning while I planned for a living. Brooke Ellis had been my best friend since we were 14. She had sat beside me when I failed my first driving test, slept on the floor of my apartment after my parents separated, and once drove 3 hours because I called her crying after a terrible job interview. She was supposed to stand beside me when I married Grant. Instead, she was standing 4 feet away in a pale blue bridesmaid dress, with my fiancé's hand still around hers. The blindfold game had been my younger sister Anna's idea. She had seen something like it at another wedding and thought it would make a funny video before the ceremony. 5 women would stand in a row. Grant would be blindfolded, and he would hold each person's hand for a few seconds. No one was allowed to speak. He was supposed to find me. It should have been harmless. When Grant released Brooke, he laughed too loudly. Well, that was embarrassing. Anna tilted her head. "You were very sure." "I guessed." Brooke folded her hands in front of her. Lucky guess. The photographer, who had been smiling a moment earlier, lowered her camera. One of my cousins suddenly became fascinated with the champagne table. My aunt asked whether anyone needed more coffee. I looked at Grant. "You didn't even hesitate with her." He reached for me, but I stepped back without meaning to. "Carrie, come on, it's a game." "I know." He grinned as if that settled it. "Then don't look at me like I failed a criminal investigation." A few people laughed again, grateful for permission. I tried to give it to them. I smiled. I even said, "Maybe I need to start practicing violin." That was when Brooke looked at me, only for a second, but I knew her face too well. I knew the difference between embarrassment and fear, and she was afraid. The strange thing was that the blindfold game did not create my suspicion. It organized it. For months, small things had been collecting around me. Grant knew Brooke's new job before I did, remembered her drink order without asking, and seemed to know her travel plans whenever I mentioned them. Each detail had felt too small to accuse anyone with. Together, they no longer felt small. Brooke had laughed and said, "He remembers everybody's order." I had believed her. I believed both of them because distrust felt like an accusation, and I had no evidence worthy of accusing the 2 people I trusted most. After the blindfold game, the bridesmaids began getting dressed for the ceremony. I sat at the vanity while a stylist adjusted the pins beneath my veil. In the mirror, Brooke was behind me pretending to organize emergency supplies into a canvas tote. I watched her reflection. Brooke? She looked up too quickly. Yeah? How did he know your hand? Her smile appeared late. He didn't. He touched 4 women. He dismissed me in 2 seconds. He touched you and knew immediately. Carrie. She softened her voice. You're about to get married. Your nerves are doing exactly what nerves do. That isn't an answer. She zipped the tote. Maybe he recognized my ring. You took your rings off for the game. She stopped. The room felt smaller. Then Anna came in asking if anyone had seen the garment steamer, and the moment broke. Brooke found a reason to leave. 10 minutes later, the videographer knocked on the suite door. The videographer, Eli Navarro, was quiet and careful. The kind of professional who tried not to intrude on a wedding day. Carrie, can I speak with you for a second? My stomach tightened before he said anything else. We stepped into the small sitting room attached to the bridal suite. He closed the door but did not lock it. I need to ask you something awkward, he said. All right. Grant was wearing a wireless microphone during the game. We were testing audio for later. I forgot to mute the feed when he went out onto the terrace. I stared at him. He continued carefully. He wasn't alone. The air conditioner clicked. Somewhere in the hallway, a service cart rattled past. Was he with Brooke? Eli did not answer immediately. That was my answer. What did they say? I think you should decide whether you want to hear it. I had spent months deciding not to know things. I want to hear it. He opened his laptop and placed a pair of headphones on the table. I put them on. At first there was wind and the scrape of a door. Then Brooke's voice. You cannot do that again. Grant sounded irritated. I didn't do anything. You grabbed my hand like you were alone with me. I had a blindfold on. That makes it worse. There was a pause. Then Grant said, quieter. I knew it was you. My hand froze over the keyboard. Brooke exhaled. Exactly. Grant said, what do you want from me right now? I want you to stop pretending this can stay contained after today. Not here. You told me the wedding would make things simpler. It will make everything calmer. Everyone goes home. Carrie and I settle back into normal. Then I figure out the rest. And where am I in your normal? You know where? No, I know where I have been. Hidden. A chair scraped across the terrace stone. Brooke's voice broke slightly. I am standing 10 yards from her while she gets ready to marry you. Grant lowered his voice. You were fine with this plan 3 weeks ago. I was lying to myself 3 weeks ago. Then lie to yourself until tomorrow. The recording ended. I removed the headphones. Eli was staring at the floor. For several seconds, I could not speak. Is there more? Not from the terrace. Did anyone else hear it? My assistant heard enough to realize something was wrong. We stopped playback. I nodded, though I did not know what I was agreeing to. Please don't use any of it. Of course. He hesitated. Do you want me to get your sister? No. That surprised both of us. What I wanted was 5 minutes in which no one else told me how to feel. I walked into the bathroom and locked the door. My dress filled half the space. My veil brushed the sink. I looked at myself in the mirror and waited for tears. They did not come. That was the ugliest part, not the affair itself. The way their lies had slowly trained me to distrust my own memory. Someone knocked gently. Carrie? Anna's voice. You okay? I unlocked the door. My sister saw my face and stopped smiling. What happened? I pulled her inside and told her, not everything, just the recording. She listened without interrupting, then said, the wedding is over. It was not a question. I think so. You think? I know. My voice sounded calmer than hers. Anna gripped both of my hands. Then we leave. I shook my head. Not yet. Carrie, I need them to tell me the truth while they are still standing in the same building. She looked as if she wanted to argue. Instead, she asked, "Do you want me there?" "Yes." We found Grant first. Grant was in a second-floor library with 2 groomsmen. When he saw me, he smiled automatically. "There she is." I hated that the words still affected me. "Can we talk alone?" His father glanced between us and immediately stood. The others followed. Anna stayed by the door. Grant looked at her. "Alone?" "She stays." His expression changed. "What is this?" I took out my phone. Eli had sent me the audio file at my request. I did not play it. "I heard you on the terrace with Brooke." Grant's face emptied. There are some truths a person confesses before speaking. His did. He sat down. "Carrie, how long?" He rubbed both hands over his face. "It isn't what you think. That sentence should be retired from human language." Grant looked at me. "Brooke and I got close." "Too close?" "How long?" "Since spring. It was September." "Did you sleep with her?" He looked toward the window. "Grant." "Yes." The word landed with less force than I expected. Maybe because the recording had already broken the floor beneath me. "How many times?" "Carrie, does the number help?" It helps me know whether the man I was going to marry is capable of answering a direct question. His jaw tightened, as if my questions were somehow creating the problem instead of exposing it. "I don't know," he said. Anna whispered, "Unbelievable." Grant turned on her. "This is between Carrie and me." "No," I said. "It stopped being between us when you brought my best friend into it." He stood and came toward me. "I love you." I stepped back. "You love being forgiven by me. That's not fair." "Fair?" He closed his eyes. "I made a terrible mistake? For 5 months?" He said nothing. I asked, "Why were you still going to marry me?" This time his answer came too quickly. "Because I wanted to." "Then why was Brooke asking where she fit after today?" His face changed again. He had not expected me to hear that part. I was going to end it. "With her?" He hesitated. The hesitation was almost gentle. It saved me from wanting him back. Before I could say anything else, the library door opened. Brooke stood there. She looked from me to Grant to Anna. "I heard you were looking for me." "No," I said, "but you should come in." She closed the door behind her. Grant swore under his breath. Brooke's eyes were already wet. "I'm sorry." "Don't start there," I said. "Start with the truth." She swallowed. "It began in April." Grant snapped, "Brooke." She turned on him. "What? You want me to protect you now?" Then she looked at me again. "We kissed after a fundraiser in April," Brooke said. "It happened again 2 weeks later. By May, it wasn't an accident." I remembered leaving that fundraiser early with a migraine, while Brooke offered to make sure Grant got home. "How often?" I asked. Brooke looked sick. "Enough that I don't get to call it a mistake." That was more honesty than Grant had given me. It did not make me grateful. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" Her face crumpled. "Yes." "When?" She had no answer. Grant paced toward the fireplace. "We are not doing this here. There are 120 people downstairs." I stared at him. "That is your concern? My concern is that we do not turn the worst thing I have ever done into a public spectacle. You were comfortable turning my wedding into a private lie." He lowered his voice. "Carrie, canceling today changes everything. I know. Our families. The money. The travel. Your dad, my mother. I know. We can postpone. We can say you're sick. We can figure this out." Brooke looked at him in disbelief. You still think there can be a wedding? Grant spun toward her. Stay out of this. She laughed once, broken and bitter. You made sure I couldn't. And there it was. Grant did not want Brooke enough to leave me, and he did not respect me enough to stop seeing her. Brooke wanted him to choose her, but had accepted secrecy because secrecy still felt like being wanted. Both of them had let me plan a future they knew was false, because honesty would have cost them comfort. I looked at Brooke. Take off the bracelet. She glanced at her wrist. A thin gold chain rested there, one I had never seen before. What? The bracelet. Take it off. Slowly, she unclasped it. I held out my hand. She placed it in my palm. On the underside of a small oval charm were 2 engraved letters. G and B. Grant turned pale. Brooke whispered, Carrie. Did he give you this? She nodded. When? June. My birthday was in June. Grant had given me a set of drafting pencils in a leather case and joked that I was impossible to shop for. I closed my hand around the bracelet and then opened it again. Take it. Brooke did not move. Take it. She did. I turned to Grant. The ceremony is canceled. He stepped toward me. Don't make a permanent decision in 10 minutes. You made yours over 5 months. I wasn't choosing her over you. That is not the defense you think it is. He stopped. I removed my engagement ring. For a second, I remembered Grant proposing after a summer storm, his hands shaking as if he understood the size of the promise he was asking me to trust. Maybe he meant it then. Meaning a promise once does not keep a person from breaking it later. I placed the ring in his hand. He closed his fingers around it automatically. Carrie, please. You couldn't recognize me with your eyes covered, I said. Maybe now you can finally see me when I walk away. I did not wait for an answer. The hallway outside was full of flowers, camera cases, garment bags, and people who had no idea the day had already changed. Anna followed me. Where are we going? She asked. Downstairs. To leave? To tell them. The ceremony was supposed to begin in 40 minutes. Guests were already gathering beneath the live oaks when I asked the coordinator to stop the musicians. Then I found my father. He took one look at me and said, What did he do? Not what happened. What did he do? I almost laughed. Grant and Brooke have been having an affair. My father went still. Then his eyes moved past me, searching for someone to confront. I touched his arm. Dad. He looked back at me. I don't need you to fight him. His jaw worked. What do you need? I need you to stand next to me. He nodded. That was all. At 3:30, instead of walking down the aisle, I stood at the front of the courtyard in my wedding dress with my father and Anna beside me. The guests quieted slowly. Grant was not there. Neither was Brooke. I was grateful. I did not want a confrontation. I wanted an ending. I held the microphone with both hands because one had started shaking. Thank you for coming, I said. I am sorry to tell you there will not be a wedding today. A murmur moved through the chairs. I learned this morning that Grant has been in a relationship with someone else for several months. That person was also someone I trusted deeply. I am not going to give you details. I am not asking anyone to choose sides. I only want you to know that this decision is mine and it is final. My voice cracked on the last word. I took a breath. The meal is already prepared and the hotel rooms remain available. Please stay, eat, see Charleston. Call it a family reunion if you want. I just will not be getting married today. A woman in the third row began crying. Grant's mother covered her mouth. My aunt stared at the ground. No one clapped. I was grateful for that too. This was not a victory, it was a demolition. I handed the microphone to the coordinator and walked back through the courtyard. My father walked beside me. At the hotel entrance, I stopped and looked back once, not at the chairs, at the live oak above them. Spanish moss moved in the wind as if nothing unusual had happened. That offended me for some reason. Then Dad said, Where do you want to go? I looked down at the dress. Somewhere nobody's waiting for me to make them comfortable. He nodded toward the parking lot. I know a diner. An hour later, I sat in a diner on the outskirts of Charleston, wearing my father's college sweatshirt over my wedding dress. Anna had removed my veil in the parking lot. Dad ordered pancakes because he knew I would claim I wasn't hungry. I ate 3 bites. Then I cried so hard I could not breathe. The next 6 weeks were ugly in ordinary ways. There was no dramatic recovery. I returned gifts, separated accounts, dealt with the apartment lease, and called vendors whose contracts carried my name. Grant sent long emails. I read the first 2 and stopped opening the rest. Grant's first email said he loved me and blamed the chaos on Brooke pushing him for answers. That told me enough. Even after losing me, he was still searching for a version of the story in which his choices had happened to him. Brooke sent one message. I am sorry, I will not contact you again unless you ask me to. She kept that promise. I returned to work too quickly. Old buildings were easier than people. A cracked wall did not accuse you of being sensitive when you pointed to the damage. But Charleston felt full of Grant. Grant's favorite places were everywhere. Brooke's old apartment sat on one of my work routes. Even streets that had nothing to do with them seemed contaminated by memory. 2 months after the canceled wedding, my company offered me a 12-month assignment in Knoxville, Tennessee, helping restore a 1920s theater that had been closed for nearly 20 years. I said yes before my manager finished the sentence. My father asked whether I was running away. Probably, I said. Do you want me to talk you out of it? No. Then send me your new address. Knoxville did not save me. It just gave my grief fewer landmarks. The theater was called the Marlowe. The lobby still had fragments of hand-painted ceiling panels beneath decades of nicotine and dust. Water had damaged the east wall. Half the seats were gone. Pigeons had occupied the upper balcony with a confidence I almost admired. On my first morning, I met Reed Lawson. He was 30, a preservation carpenter hired to supervise the woodwork and custom millwork. He wore work boots, a faded gray shirt, and the expression of a man who had already disagreed with 3 people before breakfast. Our first conversation lasted 4 minutes. He told me the original ticket counter could be saved. I told him the lower panels had rot. He said, rot is not a personality flaw. I said, neither is replacing wood that no longer holds a screw. He looked at me for a second. Then he smiled. Good. You're not sentimental. I'm deeply sentimental. I just prefer my buildings upright. That was the first time I laughed with a man who was not related to me after the wedding. It frightened me enough that I avoided Reed for the rest of the day. He did not chase me. That became one of the first things I liked about him. Over the next 3 months, Reed and I worked beside each other almost every day. He argued without punishing. He explained his reasoning, listened to mine, and could change his mind without acting diminished by it. The first time he said, "You're right," without sounding wounded by it, I nearly stared. He noticed. What? Nothing. That was definitely something. I looked back at the drawings. I'm still getting used to adult disagreement. He did not ask for details. Take your time, he said. I expected that to be the end of it. It was. A week later, he brought me coffee before an early site meeting. I looked at the cup suspiciously. What's in this? Coffee. What kind? Black. Why? You drink it black. My chest tightened. He saw the change in my face and immediately set the cup on the table instead of handing it to me. Did I do something wrong? No. You look like I just served you poison. I forced a small smile. My ex used to remember everybody else's preferences better than mine. Reed leaned against the table. Then I can forget yours on purpose if that helps. I laughed despite myself. Please don't. Good. Because it's too early to pretend I don't know how you take coffee. He walked away before the moment could become heavier. That was how things changed between us. Not through one confession, through accumulation. Reed was careful in ordinary ways. He asked before borrowing tools, returned them, texted when plans changed, and never made me guess whether he would show up. None of it looked romantic from the outside. That was why it mattered. 4 months into the project, a group of us went to a neighborhood pub after work. Reed and I ended up at one end of the table while the others argued about college football. He asked, "Were you married before?" I looked at him sharply. He lifted both hands. "You don't have to answer. I only ask because sometimes you react to relationship jokes like they have a body count." I stared into my glass. I almost was. He waited. My wedding was canceled the day of. His expression did not change dramatically. "I'm sorry. I canceled it." "Then I'm still sorry you had a reason." That answer opened something in me. I told him the short version. Not the bracelet, not the terrace recording word for word. Just that my fiancé had been seeing my best friend. And a blindfold game exposed that he knew her touch better than mine. Reed listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "That's brutal." I nodded. Then he added, "And for what it's worth, leaving was not the dramatic part. Staying would have been." I looked at him. He shrugged. "A room full of guests is not a reason to marry the wrong person." It was such a simple sentence. I had spent months hearing people ask whether canceling publicly had been necessary. Reed did not ask if I should have waited, whether Grant had apologized enough, or whether Brooke was sorry. He trusted that betrayal was reason enough. That night outside the pub, Reed asked if I wanted to have dinner with him sometime when we were not sitting beside 7 coworkers. My first instinct was no. My second was to invent a reason. Instead, I said, "I don't know if I'm ready." He nodded. "Okay. That doesn't offend you? It would be strange if your readiness were a compliment to me," I smiled. He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. "If it changes, tell me. If it doesn't, we're still good on the east balcony tomorrow at 8. We were. 2 weeks later, I asked him to dinner. Our first date was not magical. The restaurant lost our reservation, Reed spilled water on the menu, and a toddler screamed through most of dinner. When the server asked if we were celebrating, Reed said, "Functional scheduling." I laughed so hard I snorted. I had forgotten I could do that. After dinner, we walked along the river. At my apartment building, he stopped several feet from the entrance. "I had a good time," he said. I did too. He looked nervous. That mattered to me more than confidence would have. "Can I kiss you?" The question was so ordinary and direct that I almost cried. "Yes." The kiss was brief. No fireworks. No proof that fate had finally corrected itself. Just a warm hand near my elbow and a man who stepped back when the moment ended. I went upstairs smiling, then sat on the edge of my bed and cried anyway. Healing turned out to be rude that way. Happiness could open a door, and grief would walk through beside it. By spring, Reed and I were together, though I still disliked calling anyone my boyfriend. The word sounded fragile. He never pushed. The Marlowe restoration reached its halfway point. We uncovered original walnut panels behind a wall built in the 1970s. Reed spent 2 weeks stabilizing them. I found a local artisan who could reproduce missing brass details from photographs. For the first time since leaving Charleston, I began thinking about what I wanted after the assignment ended. Then Brooke called. I almost did not answer. Her name had not appeared on my phone in 7 months. I stood in the theater lobby watching dust move through a beam of afternoon light. Reed was across the room talking to an electrician. I answered. "Hello?" Brooke inhaled sharply. "Carrie, I waited. I know I said I wouldn't contact you." "You did, I'm sorry." "For calling or for everything?" "Both." I closed my eyes. What do you want? Nothing. I mean that. I almost laughed. She continued. Grant and I are not together. That is not my business. I know. I only thought you should hear it from me because people may tell you. Why would I need to hear it at all? Silence. Then she said, because part of me has spent months thinking if we broke up, maybe that would make what I did less permanent. That honesty stopped me. She said, it doesn't. I leaned against the dusty ticket counter. Brooke's voice shook. I thought being chosen by him would prove something about me, about you. I hate admitting that. What did you think it would prove? That I wasn't always the friend standing next to the person everyone loved more? I stared across the lobby. I had never known she felt that way. It changed nothing and explained something. Those are not the same thing. After the wedding, Grant wanted us to be together, Brooke said. For a while I thought that meant he had finally chosen me. Then he kept comparing me to you, how you handled money, his family, his problems. I realized I had helped him destroy the person who had been carrying half his life. I did not answer. I am in therapy, she said. I moved out of Charleston. I am not calling to ask you to forgive me. Good. I deserve that. No, I said. Do not turn my boundary into another way to punish yourself. Just respect it. She was quiet. I will, Brooke said. I miss you. Pain moved through me so cleanly that I had to sit down. I miss who we were, I said. She began crying softly. I did not comfort her. That was new for me. I don't hate you, I said, but I do not want you in my life. I understand. I hope you become someone you trust again. Her breath caught. Thank you. We ended the call. I sat alone for several minutes. Reed came over eventually. Do you want company or space? Company. He sat beside me on the unfinished floor. I told him Brooke had called. He did not ask what she said first. He asked, How are you? I leaned my head against his shoulder. Sad. That makes sense. Also relieved. That can make sense at the same time. I smiled against his shirt. A month later, Reed was offered a job in Denver. It was a serious offer, better salary, larger projects, a leadership title he had been working toward for years. He told me the same evening he received it. We were making dinner when he said, I need to tell you something before I start acting strange and make you guess. My body reacted before my mind did. I became cold. What? He explained the offer. I listened until he finished. Then I said, You should take it. His forehead creased. I didn't say I was taking it. You want it. I want parts of it. Then take it. Carrie. I walked to the sink and turned on the water, though there was nothing to wash. He came closer but did not touch me. Are you angry? No. That sounded like a yes wearing office clothes. I shut off the water. What do you want me to say? That you should stay for me. I want you to say what you actually feel. I feel like this is exactly why I did not want to do this again. His face changed. Do what? Build a life around someone who already has one foot somewhere else. That is not what is happening. It is a job in another state. Yes, which I told you about the day I learned about it. I heard the sharpness in his voice and immediately prepared for punishment. It did not come. He took a breath. I am not Grant. I know that. No. Right now you know it intellectually, but you are reacting to me like I hid this until you were trapped. I looked away. I have not accepted anything, he said. I have reasons to stay that existed before you, my family, the Marlowe, the work I want to build here. And yes, you matter too. My eyes filled. I don't want to be a reason someone gives up their life. Then don't be. I looked at him. He said, be one factor in an adult decision. That is different. No one had ever explained love to me that way. Not sacrifice, not rescue, not proof. A factor. One real part of a whole life. We spent the next week talking honestly. Reed flew to Denver, met the team, saw the projects, and came back impressed. Then he turned the offer down. Not for me. At least not only for me. He had already been discussing a partnership with an older local craftsman who wanted to retire gradually and transfer his preservation business. Reed decided he would rather build something of his own in Tennessee than become a department head in someone else's company. When he told me, I asked, "Are you sure?" He said yes. I waited for him to add, "Because of you." He did not. Then he smiled. "And I'm glad you are here." That was enough. The Marlowe reopened 11 months after I arrived in Knoxville. On opening night, the restored marquee lit the sidewalk and hundreds of people filled the lobby. Older guests told us about first dates they had there decades earlier. One man cried when he saw the walnut panels his father had once walked past as an usher. I stood near the ticket counter Reed and I had argued about on my first day. It had been saved. He came up beside me. "You were right about the rot," he said. I smiled. "Please repeat that. I want witnesses." He leaned closer. "You were catastrophically right. That is better." He kissed my temple. Across the lobby, my father waved at us. My father had driven in for the opening. He was polite with Reed but cautious, the way fathers can be when they know how badly someone has already been hurt. That night, I saw them talking alone near the staircase. Later, I asked my father what they discussed. "Wood moisture," he said. "Dad. And you. What about me?" He took a sip of coffee. I told him you do not need anybody to save you. My stomach tightened. What did he say? He said, "I know." Dad smiled. That was the right answer. Grant contacted me once more, 14 months after the canceled wedding. He sent a handwritten letter to my Knoxville apartment. I recognized his handwriting before I opened it. Grant apologized without blaming Brooke. He said losing both relationships had forced him to see how often he confused being loved with being managed. He had started counseling and did not ask me to come back. He wrote that the blindfold game haunted him because it exposed a habit he had never admitted. He chased whatever made him feel admired, while assuming the person who gave him stability would remain available. I read the letter twice. Then I put it away. I did not respond. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not always a conversation two people needed to have together. Sometimes it was simply the point at which anger stopped being the person you carried into every room. A year later, Reed asked me to marry him. He asked in the workshop behind the preservation company he was joining, while I was helping choose finishes for a set of custom doors. There was sawdust on the floor. I had a pencil behind my ear. He had glue on one sleeve. He said, "I had a speech." I looked up from the sample board. "That sounds dangerous." "It was very good in the truck." "What happened?" "You are standing here." I smiled. He took a ring box from his pocket. My entire body went still. For 1 second, I was back in Charleston with another ring and another future waiting for me. Reed saw it. He did not kneel immediately. Instead, he said, "We do not have to do this today." Tears came to my eyes. "Do what?" "Decide. I want to marry you." "I'm not asking because I need an answer before dinner." I laughed through the tears. "That is a terrible proposal. I told you the speech was better in the truck." I looked at him. There was no audience, no family expectation, no deposits, no rows of chairs waiting for my answer, just a question. That was when I understood how different choice felt, when it was actually mine. "Yes," I said. He blinked. "Today, yes, or eventually, yes?" "Today, yes." Then he knelt, and I started laughing so hard I had to cover my mouth. We married 8 months later in my father's backyard under 2 oak trees. There were 37 guests. Anna was my maid of honor. I did not replace Brooke with another best friend. Some places in a life are not vacancies waiting to be filled. They are chapters that ended. Before the ceremony, Anna walked into the kitchen holding a black sleep mask. I stared at it. She started laughing. Relax. Dad uses it on airplanes. Get that thing out of this house. Reed came in behind her carrying ice. What did I miss? Your future wife just banned blindfolds from the property, Anna said. Reed looked at me. Reasonable policy. Then he set the ice down, crossed the kitchen, and took both my hands in his. He did not close his eyes. He did not need a game to prove anything. You ready? He asked. I looked through the window at my father adjusting chairs on the lawn and Anna pretending not to cry. It was an ordinary afternoon we had chosen, not a performance. Yes. We walked outside together. I used to think the worst thing that happened on my first wedding day was that my fiancé recognized another woman faster than he recognized me. It was not. The worst thing was realizing how long I had mistaken familiarity for devotion and endurance for love. But the blindfold game gave me one gift. It ended the argument between my instincts and my excuses. Grant did not fail to recognize me because a silly game was difficult. He failed because he had been paying attention somewhere else while trusting that I would remain exactly where he left me. I did not. For a long time after I walked away, I thought healing meant becoming so independent that no one could ever matter enough to hurt me again. I was wrong about that too. Healing meant learning that trust is not blindness. It is not ignoring what you see because you love the person standing in front of you. It is choosing someone whose actions allow you to keep your eyes open. Reed never asked me to forget what happened in Charleston. He never treated my caution like an insult. He simply gave me enough ordinary honesty that I eventually stopped expecting every silence to hide a second life. And I learned to give him the same thing. If you have ever stayed too long because you feared leaving would make the years behind you meaningless, remember this. Walking away does not erase the love you gave. It only stops you from giving more of it where it is no longer safe. My first wedding ended before it began. My life did not. On the day I finally married Reed, there were no games, no tests, and no blindfolds. He looked directly at me when he made his vows. This time I looked directly back.